Hey, I'm Lockstin, and DeNA, the creators of Pokemon Masters, granted me early access to Pokemon Masters, so I've been playing it for a little over a month now. And they are also sponsoring this and several other Pokemon Masters videos, so we're going to have a few weeks all about it. But of course, for day one, the question is always, is it worth your time? So here's what the game is all about, in a full review thing. Pokemon Masters is a mobile game featuring 3 versus 3 Pokemon battles in real time. Sold! That's it! That's exactly what I've wanted Pokemon to do since, like, several generations ago! But, of course, it is also very simplified because it's a mobile game. Oh. Well, alright. Okay. That's fine. So the most important part of any video game is the gameplay, so let's just start with that. In Pokemon Masters, you play through a linear campaign which is basically menu-based. Rather than walking from one area to the next, you click on the next part of the story in the menu. Some of these missions are just story, some of them are just battling, and some of them do have you walk through a small linear area, meeting other trainers and battling some of them. Needless to say, while there is some story and lore, the obvious focus and main appeal of this game is the battling, which is actually very different from the mainline games in more ways than just turn-based versus real-time. But first, let's define real-time. It's not a running-around action RPG. Instead, the gameplay is somewhat similar to Yokai Watch or the middle Final Fantasies. Every Pokemon has a speed stat, and when you combine the speed stats of the 3 Pokemon on your team, you get a number which then dictates how fast a bar on the bottom of the screen fills. This bar is broken into chunks, and a number of these chunks can be used by any Pokemon to do an attack. Some attacks take 1 bar, others 2, and some of the more powerful ones take 3. And I do specify attack there, because actions that buff your own party or involve the trainer don't take from this action bar. So things like using a full heal or an X special defense all, or using a move that buffs the stats of your own team can be done at any time, though they do have a limited number of uses per battle or set of battles. And while I'm here, don't worry, you don't need to worry about buying items to restock them. Though it should also be mentioned that the items the trainers can use are set. Barry and his Empoleon have a full heal. Period. The items trainers have are a part of their trainer abilities set to the trainers, which is just like the Pokemon abilities. They have them. Period. There's no catching Pokemon here either, which is explained in the story. The island has no wild Pokemon. Rather, every trainer gets to bring a partner Pokemon. And as you level up and progress in each trainer's individual stories, you can evolve them though. But at the time of making this review, only some pre-evolutions can evolve, like Seal, Piplup, and Snivy. But if you look at the decks, Trico and Ponyta have stats that imply they are the final evolutions, and they also don't have the marker that says they can evolve like the others do. But at the same time, when you fight Brendan or Blaine, the owners of each, they do have a Sceptile and a Rapidash, which implies that they can and will evolve, just not in the early soft release that I'm in, I guess. But back to how the core gameplay differs from the main Pokemon games. One of the main mechanics of Pokemon battling are type advantages and disadvantages. Pokemon have several weaknesses, resistances, and sometimes even immunities, and these can sometimes be detrimental. However, when it comes to this factor in Pokemon Masters, it acts much more like the trading card game, meaning every Pokemon, individually, has a singular weakness. For example, Infernape and Torkoal are weak to water, but Arcanine is weak to ground, even though they are all fire type. Haxorus here is weak to ice, Salamence is weak to fairy, and Kingdra is weak to dragon. All different weaknesses despite being the same type. But don't worry, this doesn't mean that you have to memorize every single Pokemon's singular weakness, as their one weakness is always on display, and before battling you are told which 2 types of Pokemon you should bring, those being the ones that are strong against your opponent. But as we've been playing this, we've learned that bringing in a Pokemon that has a type advantage isn't always the best idea. A lot of the time during the campaign, you won't even have a Pokemon of the right type, and even if you do, it may be underleveled and not worth the effort. Or even if it is at level, it may not matter. What's the use in a super effective bonus doubling the damage power of a Power 20 move when you have another Pokemon that does 75 damage by default? You know? Though, of course, getting that super effective bonus with the 75 power attack is great, but not always an option. Throughout the campaign, I have fought some battles where utilizing the super effective moves was the only reason I could beat them without grinding. But other times, taking the Pokemon with the super effective attack out of my party was the smart idea that allowed me to progress. This, to me, is a good thing. I was a bit worried at first about just how rock, paper, scissors-y this game was going to be, and for the first few chapters it definitely felt that way, but as the difficulty started ramping up, extra thinking was needed. Okay, so we got the super effective stuff covered. Now how about resistances? Oh, there are none. Well, alrighty. Yeah, I thought it was a bit weird at first too. I could understand removing type immunities, since the number of Pokemon as of making this review is kinda low. But even if attacking a Crocodile with a Pikachu successfully seems odd, overall I think that it is an interesting but okay choice to make. Along with the whole one weakness thing, being a mobile game, it makes sense to simplify the mechanics. Even if it makes the whole experience a bit on the shallow side, it is still plenty fun. And this simplification goes into the Pokemon moves, again. Each Pokemon only gets 2 attacks, though that doesn't include the self-buffing moves and or trainer abilities. So in total, there are 4 things to do while charging the sync attack meter, which is like a Z move. And once that gets charged, you get to do the 5th thing, which is the sync attack. Now, only having 4 things to do per Pokemon doesn't sound bad. I mean, the mainline games are the same. Each Pokemon can only learn 4 moves. And then, sure, you can use an item separate from that, but what I mean here is each Pokemon has 4 things they can do. Unlike the mainline games where some Pokemon have a move pool of 50 plus moves you can choose 4 from, in Pokemon Masters, each Pokemon has 4 things that you can do. Your Lucario has the same moves and abilities as everybody else's Lucario. Which, again, is alright, I suppose, for a mobile game. If they were to bring this real-time battle style to the mainline games, or even to a spin-off console game, I would want the Pokemon to have all of their typings, with weaknesses, resistances, and immunities in mind, and with the ability to swap moves and perhaps even swap the one item you could use per battle. But for the sake of a simple pick-up-and-play mobile game, this works just fine. It is a bit on the shallow side, but that doesn't make it unfun. If I were to use an analogy, I'd say that the main Pokemon games are like a nice fireplace. They take time to kindle up, but they are nice and warm, and they're very satisfying for quite some time. Pokemon Masters is like a bucket full of matches. Gosh, it burns bright, and it's hecka fun! In a way, it's even better than a fireplace, but it burns out kinda quickly since it's not as deep. AKA, it's a mobile game, but at least it's a really good mobile game. And as with any big mobile game, there will be plenty of content updates in the future to add in the remaining bit of story, as well as plenty more trainers and Pokemon, I'm sure. We'll go deep into the lore and story in another video, but for the sake of a review, I'd say that the writing is a mixed bag. On the one hand, every trainer you get has a small story bit that you can do with them to learn their backstory or build character. It's great for world building. The little bits of story between the battles are Pokemon tier, meaning it's just about the same as the Pokemon games. Though I do love how the characters are partially voiced and significantly more expressive this time around. Oh my word, the faces, the personality! Though I am super glad that Rosa is a main character because she's easily one of my favorite player characters. And Flannery was my first cartoon crush as a kid, and I assume that's the same for many others. These developers know exactly what they're doing, don't they? Character interactions are very fun, from giggly waifus to nurturing a father-son relationship to guys dealing with their past and others speaking of their knightly duties. Ultimately, it's nothing super deep, but still fun. It's very anime, if you could use that as a descriptor. Most characters have their character archetype or their single interest, and that's what they're all about. It leaves something to be desired, but it's still better than not having anything at all, just making it a fighting game like all those other mobile fighting games. Again, it's a mobile game, so it's not exactly about the story or character development, but gosh dang it, was this refreshing to see. It's so nice to see characters like this in a Pokemon game again. Except for the bad guy, Lear. I mean, oh god. You first see him, and he seems interesting, like he might have some sort of real motive or some reason for being the way that he is, and maybe the Pokemon antagonist will be well thought out this time. I had my hopes up and they were crushed the very next time you see him. After meeting Skyla, he's all like, haha, I win, because of course I did. And Skyla's all, yeah, good job, you did good too, Swanna, thanks for being a super awesome Pokemon. And then he's all, what are you doing? Are you praising your Pokemon? Are you actually friends with your Pokemon? What a loser. Don't you know that Pokemon are only tools to be taken advantage of and not shown love ever? Ha, no wonder you lost. Well, so much for him being interesting. Later on, you get to meet with his 2 henchmen later, and they are significantly better characters, significantly more interesting. They've got morals and motives and, like, swibbity swoobs, if that's a word. They're better. I'll go over all them in more detail in the story and lore video. Just know, don't expect anything good out of this guy. Well, besides his design and voice and the musical theme. Oh my gosh, listen to this! The music and sound design in this game is so good! I'm not an expert in this field, but I can say it's extremely satisfying and fits right into the Pokemon franchise. And adding in little voice clips adds just that extra little touch of personality that the games, all of the games, had been lacking up until this point. It's so nice. Let's see what else is there. The graphics. Again, it's a mobile game, so it's not super detailed or anything, but it's stylized excellently. This is exactly the aesthetic I'd like to see the main games go into someday. Bright, saturated, super expressive, fun. It's like you're just living in the Pokemon anime. And when it comes to battle animations, the Pokemon actually move to the other side of the field to do their physical attacks. That's great. That's excellent. And the little trainer animations before the big moves just add a load of personality too. Just everything about this game bursts with soul. But of course there are more cons than just the few that I've mentioned. The game is on the shallow side, but I don't regret any of the time I spent on it. So when answering the question, is it worth your time? The answer is a definitive yes. Oh my word, yes. Hands down. I'm sorry for the clinking. I'm married. It's really nice. But not anymore. I have a point to make. Oh my word, yes. Hands down, the best Pokemon mobile game yet. In my opinion, anyway. So let's see what else. Oh, of course, the monetization method. This game is completely free to play, but they have to make money to support the game somehow. So how does it work here? Well, at least during my month with it, there were no ads. Though the game was unreleased to most at the time, which may have something to do with that. So who knows what they're going to do there. But otherwise, there are gems. You can use real money to buy gems, and gems can be used for one thing, and one thing only. As of now, anyway. And that's scouting out more trainers to add to your roster. It is a gacha game after all. But do you need to do this? Oh heavens no. Throughout the single-player campaign, several trainers join your roster. With the amount of story currently in the game, you get 18 trainers just for playing it. And also, throughout the story and every little bit of extra training that you do, training being what this game calls grinding, you also earn gems. Several of them, like a surprising amount of them considering it's the premium currency. Each time you complete a new training mission for the first time, you get 30 of them. And there are new ones popping up constantly. Without putting any money into the game, I was able to scout for more trainers around 16 times in just the first week. Though, like with actual gacha machines, you can get the same trainer multiple times. When this happens, they level up the power of their sync attack, and as of now, I think this is the only way to do that. So it costs 300 gems to scout for a new trainer, but if you buy your own gems, it'll only take 100 of them each day, which is an interesting system. The gems you pay for are basically 3 times as good as the ones that you just get in the game, thanks to the daily discount, which you can only do once per day, but still. So for $1, you get 1 scouting, which sounds fine to me, considering how many you get just for playing the game too. And as of now, no trainers are locked behind pay gems, and you also can't buy level ups or other enhancement items. Money just gives you more options for your team composition earlier. which I think is a fair system. So again, is Pokemon Masters worth your time? Well, in my opinion, that is a 100% yes if you are a fan of Pokemon. And if you're more of a casual fan of Pokemon, like you liked it in Gen 1 and 2 and you got into it again with Pokemon Go, I'd say it's still yes for sure, because it's still a really fun game if you aren't like super into Pokemon. And besides, the worst thing that could happen is that you don't like it for some reason and you wasted like an hour. So be sure to click that link below to download it and try it out. I love it, and I'm sure most of you will too. And again, big thanks to DeNA for early access and support of this channel. Get ready for a whole load of Pokemon Masters content, and until next time, never stop using your noggin.